Greetings, everybody. I am extremely appreciative of all of you taking the time out of your day to join me, Connor Lott, for this live production masterclass. And I am extremely excited. I am thankful for the opportunities that I have to serve Christafari as the live production engineer, as the audio engineer, as the person that puts on the events, the shows, the Ascend masterclasses, and so much more. And so I'm excited to share the 6 years of knowledge that I actually started in this building at this church. And I'm excited to share the tips and tricks and the things I've picked up along the way around the world that hopefully can benefit you, whether you're in a church or somewhere else. And so actually, to start off, I have a poll for all of you. And that is, if you could all answer that, I will launch it now. If you could just, did you attend the last session? You can answer yes or no. And then currently, what's kind of the live production work that you all do? You know, are you a volunteer or are you a professional in your field? And then the last question is, how would you rate your experience on the lane of, are you an expert or are you just right at the beginning? And also, feel free to write down, after you've done that poll, while we're waiting for everyone to do it, if you could write where you are from, as it's a blessing that you are here. So, if you guys could fill that in, we'll see. There's still a few of you that can do that. And I wanted to do this, I could talk in a bunch of different ways, but if I know kind of where you all are on this spectrum of live production, then that will benefit me as I explain kind of just where I've come from and how I've kind of navigated this field of live production. And for me, if you don't know, studio and live are two very different fields, but for me personally, I fell in love with live production early on in my career because you have one shot. You have one moment to solidify the sound, one shot to solidify the opportunity to make people either let go of their problems for a while or different things. But the most important thing now, especially, is we have the opportunity as engineers to connect people to God through a good mix, through the principles. We have the opportunity to take away distractions and allow people to connect with God in ways that they never would otherwise. So that's just kind of a bigger idea for me of philosophy, that we get to do that. So while you're still doing that, if you haven't finished, you can answer it while I'm praying, but just to open us up. Dear Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to grow and share as a community in order to benefit the body of Christ. And I just pray that you would give me the words to say, that you would give me the knowledge that needs to be given, as well as bless all the people in all over the world that are wanting to learn this craft, that you would bless them and lead them and give them safety and give them wisdom as they put on productions, that you would allow them to really thrive in their space. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen. Oh, awesome. So it's about somewhat even on those who attended last session. So last session, just sound engineering fundamentals, basically covered just what gear are we actually using? What are the things that we're really getting in the nitty-gritty in order to accomplish live production? So that's one. And what kind of work do you guys do? A few, it looks like one of you tour, one of you guys work at a venue, a paid church tech, and then a lot of church volunteers. That's awesome that you are here. And then volunteering at small events, that is great as well. And then your experience, most people are a little bit familiar, and then a few experts, experienced, competent. Well, awesome. Well, this really is going to give me a great opportunity to really speak to those people that are you know a little bit, but you want to go to the next level. And I am super thankful because that is why we made this, to take you from a decent understanding to be so much further along. And I'm really excited that you chose to take the next step in order to thrive and in order to be successful in what you do. So I am going to now share a presentation. And one of the things too, live production, these Zoom masterclasses are in a sense live production, which is really interesting. But the thing is, live production is basically when you have one opportunity to accomplish these goals or these different things. And so it's an opportunity that you have to really, you got one shot, you have one opportunity, and as you take that opportunity, it allows us to really thrive in a unique space. And so that's, yeah. So, live production. I do production. This is from the South America. These shows were in Argentina and Brazil. Huge crowds, lots of pressure, and just the opportunity really to, at the end of the day, kind of fail, but at the same time to really step up to the next level. And once again, this is kind of what we tour with, the basic group. But, I'm at a church right now. You guys have all different types of gear, and so the principles I'm going to share are for anything. I got really the first major understanding of production by working at this place called Hume Lake Christian Camps, a wonderful ministry for the Lord. And this was really kind of what got me underneath my interest in production. And then I became the production manager of the Saban Theater out in Beverly Hills, and we a church out there rented the space, as well as just running the whole theater. And you'll see some pictures of the theater throughout this presentation. But basically, it was a great opportunity to really start to refine these skills that I had been learning. And I have done some pretty large scale stuff. And obviously with huge teams, I am only one person, but it's all about teamwork. It's all about working together to succeed. And that is why I do what I do. I can only do so much alone, but I love collaboration. I love teamwork. I love allowing people to grow. And if I'm able to help guide them grow like I am now, it is so fulfilling because it's in a unique way making disciples through the work we do as we get to praise the Lord through the work we do. And it's one of those things that as we work for the Lord, and I shared in Colossians 3:23, work for the Lord, and not for human masters, it doesn't matter what the work is necessarily, but how we hold ourselves, how we live and act, and people see us and people are watching. And so we have such a big opportunity and responsibility to really dig in deep and to really, grow. And so the next component is, I've seen stuff, I've worked with people, I've done different things. But at the end of the day, right, professionalism is extremely important. People literally have gotten fired over professionalism. People have gotten, yelled at, a lot of anger, frustration, different things. And so as Christ ambassadors in our work, being respectful and caring goes a long way. I've had people give me so many compliments about going the extra mile, of going and doing the work that no one else wants to do and really stepping up and being the best you can be. And not just for gain or compliments or different things, but really for the Lord. Being quick to help, being aware of your surroundings, and not losing your temper. It's all extremely important. And then at the end of it all, right, to close it out, saying thank you, shaking people's hands, saying thank you. In the South American tours, I'd pass out little papers just saying thank you from Christafari and from me personally, because people need encouragement to keep moving, especially if it's long days, hard days, 20-hour days, 24-hour days, super long weeks. It's important. But, if you are unprepared, then that causes problems within the process of live production. And so for me, having a flashlight, I also use a headlamp that literally is so clutch. because you don't need your hands are free as you are grabbing things and different stuff. Also, having a flash drive. I label them, have a flash drive, have a backup for digital consoles, for different files to save it, move it over. Also, if you don't know what gaff tape is, gaffer's tape, I went to Home Depot and no one in Home Depot knew what gaffer's tape was. This tape, and it's easy to rip. I'll show you. It's kind of expensive depending. You just rip it. See, the beauty about gaffer's tape is it is a very low adhesive. And so you stick it, you stick the cables down, you do different things, and then it's easy to take off. And it's really an effective, useful tool throughout live production overall, as well as having an aux cable with you, having a music player. Usually I have an extra laptop for walk-in music, different things. I also carry around, I keep this with me. It's a little tiny, cheap little case that opens up and just has tools. I carry screwdrivers, adapters, turnarounds, a knife, E-tape especially. This is huge when labeling cables, which I'll get into later. Earplugs, ground lifts, just tons of little tools that benefit you. And so finding, what are you just a volunteer in a church? So maybe the person above you or leading has those little resources. But the concept I get at with is this. You have no excuse for something in a production to not happen just because you don't have the tools. So even though people pay for all this gear and all this stuff, I have my own personal gear that if something bad is happening, I can fulfill it. I have my little tool. I can use a HDMI adapter. I have my knife. I can cut it. I have this. I have that. Because the last thing you want to do is be in a position where you say, oh well, I guess we can't do this show. Guess we can't do this event. And that's it. So that is not a position you want to be in at all. Making sure you know who you're talking to. Is it a manager? Is it a maintenance person? Making sure if you're volunteering at church, you get there on time and figure out maybe the venue is locked. So figuring out how to get in, who's the person you need to talk to, getting their phone number early, and having a team to work with, parking, making sure doors are unlocked, and then just kind of know what's going on within the different segments, as well as, I don't know, at a church, not so much. There's going to be writers, having a stage plot, an input list, these different things. But they are vital to the success of us in production. So I'm going to show you a couple samples. Okay, so let me pull this up for you. So this is a technical writer. And this is pivotal to the success of a production, whether it be in some degree a church or band or whichever. Basically, a technical writer is all the information that we need to communicate to the venue, the church, whoever, so that they know what is expected of the people coming, as well as what they supply for us. So in this case, right, just formalities, and then contact information, load in and sound check, what we are bringing as the artist or the person, as well as then the host, where the event is happening. That is all extremely important. And then kind of what to expect, right? Inner monitors or monitors, consoles, and then what is being supplied as well. Video, any video, different things. Lighting package, and then backline. So backline is very important. Backline is basically the equipment being used. Some tours and bands travel with their own backline, their drum sets, their bass amps. Christafari does not. We only carry our console and some instruments and a few things. So like a church, right? The main setup would be backline. So let's say you're going to have a guest, singer or something. It might be helpful for them to know if there is a backline of certain drums, different equipment, if they have a guest drummer with them or something, just to know kind of what's happening. So if you're, the sound engineer of a church and they don't really have any of this kind of thing, just what are the brands? What's being used so that they know or or a volunteer knows what is being supplied. Yeah, so the bass amp, guitar amp, and then who's in the group. In this case, right, you could use something like Planning Center or Master Tour to organize your volunteers or staff in order so that everyone knows where they are. Now, this is vital, an input list. So, an input list is basically the inputs and outputs of the the the, the instruments, the stage, what is being patched where. And basically, so the patch bay is kind of the hub, and some places might have multiple locations, north, east, west, and then all of them go to from a snake to the main console. Or it's digital, maybe with Dante, Ethernet, Cat5, AES, whichever. And so it's the communication. Some people call it the patch Bible. As much as Christians that we should be holding onto the Bible, audio people, sound engineers need to have their patch Bible with them and know it. And that is because, especially if you have multiple people, right, everyone should have a copy of this, whether a picture or a printed copy, so that everyone knows, okay, kick in is number 1, kick out is number 2, snare top is 3. And you go through the list because then when you start labeling your console, then you know where everything should be. So then when you mic check, you know where it is. Now, this is where 80 to 90% of the problems happen. People mix it up. There's a bad cable within the patch. People switch the left and rights. This is how you track down every problem so you know you have clean signal in every single input and output. And so if you look over on the left column, and I'll show you a different example later, but that's also where you write if you have subsnakes, A snake, B snake, 1 snake, 2 snake, whichever, then you're able to do like A1, A2, B1. So when you write this out, some things might change. Someone might add synth. Someone might add an extra guitar, and you can add it in. Leaving gaps is also very helpful. And in this case, also showing, okay, what microphone stands, what mics we might be using. And then this is equally as important in a different way. So this is a stage plot. The stage plot can sometimes have the input lists, but it also gives, especially if you're a guest volunteering somewhere or you are traveling, then people have an idea of what to set up for. People have an idea of what to expect, where things should go, and how it should be patched if you're not there to help set up. And so this is vital as well with the input list to know where they go. Also where power goes, where you're going to add an extension cable, an Edison or a AES cable or IEC cable, whichever. So that's vital as well. Those two things is where it's most helpful, but if it's wrong, it can be detrimental to the speed, efficiency, and quality of your setup, which then delays sound check and other things. And then for professionally, just, people can add signatures if you want, and then just reminder, contact info, that kind of thing. So that's what we use. And some of these, right, if you have 10 inputs, okay, fine. But if you start having bigger churches, bigger concert venues, right? I had the privilege to work with Alan Parsons Project, and their rider was 28 pages, right? So it's all of this stuff, right? You have, kind of the ramifications, the group, contact, the people, band, and then all of these different tickets and different things. So as, more professional sound, having to sift through all of this. And it's difficult, but I figured out different ways to kind of condense, right? So here's gear, risers, power, all the backline, amps, all of this stuff is so important to communicate clearly. So if you have guests or other people coming through, they know what to do. Now here's a good example of a stage plot, but in this case, right, it's 48 inputs. So needing to be organized, needing to know where everything is important. And even if it's simple, I mean, I will just handwrite a quick input list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for some random little event. Because if someone asks if something is wrong, you need to know where things go. And this will show you the example. So right here, right, you have C1, C2, C3, right? And it's all things that are in the same area, A1, A2. And this is where you might skip things. So then you go, from stage, you plug them in, run the cables. And if you have a lot of different people helping you, it just clarifies the communication. Once again, right, take a picture or something. And it really helps a lot. Now, when I try and organize, I will use these two documents that I put together, right? So you have like the date of the event, you have where it is, who's volunteering. And once again, you could use maybe Planning Center for all the church volunteering, who's doing audio, who's doing monitors, who's doing lighting, spotlight, stagehand, rigger, loaders, runner. So this is more for, and also just a checklist of making sure you've gotten all of the information you need, making sure that you have received everything and you're all on the same page, right? When you have bigger crews, you need to all be on the same page and clearly communicate. And if you are, maybe you're just an assistant, you should ask the people above you for this information. Say, hey, I'm trying to understand more. Do you have any extra information? Can you email it to me early so I can be prepared? And that'll show drive, that'll show professionalism, that'll show interest, and maybe they have a connection somewhere that you could get side money and learn this craft to help in church or somewhere else. So that'd be my recommendation. Set yourself apart. This is something on tour that I used, translated questions. In this case, I used WhatsApp with Christafari rather than email just because of convenience. Now, I prefer email because I can better organize it, but I'd ask, right, what's your backline? When is the show starting? When are we on? And it really helps clarify what you can expect so that you can be as prepared as possible. And this is just a couple quick examples of different ones that I did with Christafari in Argentina. So you have all this, and translating, it gets harder. And so, being organized, having your input lists and stage plots correct. One of the worst things is when they have an input list and it's not updated. So then they show up and it's wrong for you or vice versa. So double checking all of these, being in clear communication, knowing what to expect, what you can walk into is all extremely important, as well as will, save you from frustration and extra time. So now, if you are at a church, okay? If you're at a church, the thing that you need to know is you need to have a clean space. Now, this is the theater I used to work at, okay? Things were everywhere, stands, it was not kept well, and so I decided to clean it up, right? So you have all these crazy stands, all this stuff, taking up all the space, clean, empty, right? The last thing, especially as a church, right, you have a budget. The last thing you want to do is buy the same thing over and over again because you can't keep finding it because someone is putting it somewhere else that you don't want. So you need to be clean. Now, something I developed from the school I went to for college is you make a little template. You make, volunteers. Okay, this will be great, especially for church volunteers, right? If you're helping with sound, this is where things go. Labeling them on the racks, right? Putting them on the wall, cable lengths, different things, right? And giving them a template, right? So that everyone knows that this is how it needs to look before the service is done. If you have 2 services, 3 services, different volunteers coming in and out, you want to direct your people, your volunteers, to have an idea of where all the equipment goes so that you can find it quickly and efficiently for the next event, right? For the next service, right? So same, right? Lower audio, okay, make sure you have the monitors, the mic stands, music stands, right? This is just a quick way, post it on the door, and you're good. You're good, it's working, all that kind of stuff. And so, that's just, it's a very, very important aspect of all of this because organization and clarity of knowing what you have and what you need to work with is huge. So kind of pre-show, right? A big thing is your load in, okay? Bringing the gear in if you're traveling, Maybe you have a service, once again, like in an elementary school, right? You have to bring your stuff in. Load is basically just the process of setting all your gear up, bringing it in, making it work. So last on, or first on, last off is a vital thing that I'm going to now show you. I made a video for us. So I am going to show you what that is just real quick. So this is the concept of last on, first off. So you turn on the console first, and in this case, with the EQs, here's the console, power amps for wireless and different things. So you turn that on first. And the whole concept is basically the goal is to protect your equipment, and the goal is to protect so there's no power surges. The goal is to make sure that nothing pops and it's smoothly turned on in a correct process in order to keep your equipment safe, as well as then you also keep the chain of signal flow. You understand it. You know how to work it. So here's 2 power amps. So I'll turn these on. And here's a crossover. And then here's for the different speakers as well as then the monitors. So now that that's on, last will be the subs. Because in the chain, you have console, speakers, monitors, and then subwoofers. And for this building, it's in the back. So then, now that these are on, then after the event, you turn the sub off, turn the speakers off, and then turn the console off. So that is the principle of last on, first off. Awesome. Yeah, so that's last on, first off. And it's an extremely important concept. You want to protect your gear. And so then you're going to just have to understand, okay, what are your inputs and outputs? What are what sound system, what are the speakers, what are the monitors, all of that. And knowing your routing, knowing your patching. And so I am now going to switch to, okay. So patching is vital. Patching is extremely important. Patching is what gets the job done. If you have 5 things, okay, so be it. But if you have 48, you need to be organized. These are some different types of patching bays. And then you also need to stay organized with your cabling. This is an event that we did, and the rental company sent us a bad wrapped cable. So we had to take it all out, and it was just, took us a long time. So this is it's not a 25-foot cable. This is a 100-foot snake in a figure 8, and it was all tangled. It was a tangled mess. So you have to be clear what's going on. Now here's really important with cabling, right? So when you have a snake like this, okay, you want this to be clean, but you want to leave all the cables by each stand and microphone. And this is a troubleshooting help, and this is also a principle that will help with just making it to be, you can follow the cables easily. You can change them, you can test them. This is the way to stay organized, stay clean. You gotta have your staff, your people keep this clean. And then this is just, an idea of, this is a analog, EQ, compression, all that kind of stuff, right? Very clean. This is from a client that came through. So it's vital to stay organized and to do that. Now I'll do a quick thing on rigging, manual lifts, motor lifts, ground stacks, speaker stands, all of that. Just so you have an idea, so this was Company Central, tons of rigging points. It's a very dangerous, very specific task. Most churches won't have it. Most churches are going to have dead hang speakers, like there are behind me, where they just stay there, they're put, right? But just know that if you're in a bigger place and they have rigging, okay, it's not something to play around with. It's a very serious thing. People can die. And this is a manual rigging lift. You pull it up and down and are able to drop battens and whatnot. Now power, just real quick, when you're specific with your church staff and with different people, don't just say, hey, I need a power cable, okay? What power cable do you need, okay? Are you using Edison, right? Are you using Edison power, or are you using an IEC cable? IEC is for keyboard, for amps, for different things, right? You don't just need an Edison power cable, a regular one like this, okay? You need to have the other one. And then just knowing, right, within the different countries, you have 110 volts, 220 volts, you have grounding. Are you on generator power, or are you on just regular power? What if a power surges? Do you have power surge adapters and or power conditioners, different things like that? And then just a note, making sure that things are grounded and being weary of electrocution. I've been electrocuted a couple times. It's not fun. Don't try it at home. But it's very important to know and be aware of where is the power being run from and how is it being run and all the principles within that, because you need to be careful. And cam lock, which is right here, is illegal in some places. It's very dangerous. You need to put it in a certain order like it says there. And power is not something, as well as rigging, don't mess around with it. It's serious. And figure out if you're not comfortable touching, if you don't know, do not touch it. We want you to stay alive. That is, rule number one, stay alive. So make sure you're careful on that end. So now quick on troubleshooting. Just being aware, right? Lighting can sometimes interfere with audio signal, okay? If you have an audio line running somewhere, make sure that your lines, your audio and lighting are perpendicular, not parallel, perpendicular, okay? And this is because the currents are going to add hums and different things. If you're having a bunch of hums, try turning your lights off for a second to see if it disappears. That might be an issue. Knowing that maybe you need a quick ground lift, but also, once again, it's power, so be careful about what it is. Bad cables. Bad cables happen when something breaks. And this is something that I got that can help with that. So it is a cable tester, and it allows you to test cables. See, is it something else, or is it actually something that you need, and do you need to replace the cable or different things like that? And then making sure, in last session I showed signal flow, but just so you know, right, you have the mics to the cables, to the snake, to the patch, to the console, from the console output to the monitors and to the mains. Just understand when you troubleshoot, you go from one thing to the next, right? So a mic cable, maybe the mic cable is bad, right? So you test a different patch, maybe, or you check a different cable. You check the routing, right? More often than not, and even with all the Zoom stuff we've been doing, more often than not, the problem is simpler than you think. So try the simple things first. Make sure you flow smoothly through each step. Don't unplug the cable and then try a new cable, and you need to narrow down each problem one by one. And if you go slow, then you're consistent. If you're consistent, then you're actually going faster rather than rushing and running around and going crazy. And so our pre-show, so let's say, right, you have an empty stage. You go in, okay, you have the input list, stage plot, you set it up, you run your lines, okay? You run the lines. Before the band arrives, okay, do a line check. You go over to each mic, right? And you tap the mic, or you talk into the mic, and you see, okay, am I getting signal? Am I getting clean signal? Is there a buzz? Is there this? Is there that, right? You're not going to have a full check yet, but you're going to have a quick just line check, just making sure everything's patched correctly, all of that. Making sure your monitors are set up using pink noise, using other options in order to make that flow successfully. Okay, and now we are going to jump into kind of stage direction, and I'm going to use, I have some people in the church that are going to help me. I have a vocalist, a drummer, and a pianist. And basically, we're just going to walk through quick stage direction during a sound check. Okay, how do you communicate? And how do you get from a basic mix or basic line check, right? You just have signal, to then having the ability to do a full run through, sound check, and then show. So we're going to transition. So I'm going to end my share. And I do not know the Yamaha Rivage series, but it's probably pretty good. And yeah, quick note on Dante. Dante is a very efficient, very good method of routing. It can get complicated, but at the end of the day, it is a very accurate and good way of running sound. Usually it's very clean. You use Ethernet. You run it from the stage to the console. You have as many separations as you need to. And just know, don't get lost. Make sure when you recall scenes that you don't have scenes that are soft patched. Hard patching, so hard patching is using the cables. Soft patching is internally changing the patch. Soft patching only do when you know exactly what you're doing, because you can get lost and really cause a lot of problems. So this is, right, the direction with the sound check. Okay, the goal, you know for a fact, the band is not going to play the same way as they will during a show or during a church service, right? People perform when there's people in the room. People react differently. So the key is communicating in stage direction. Okay, I need this from you. I need more kick. I need this. So to my drummer, you can hear me, right? Awesome. So I'm going to now unmute. Okay, so if I could get the kick, please. Okay, just go one at a time, and I want to make sure, can someone please put in the chat that you can hear the kick? Awesome, it's a good level for you? Perfect. Okay, kick please. Okay, so he's giving me kick right now on the console. Okay, it's peaking here at the top. Okay, so it's peaking. There's some red, so the gain needs to come down. Okay, and this is EQ off. Okay, so it's not very strong. It's pretty flat, right? So I have the low frequencies up, right? This is an analog console. I do have a compressor over here on the ground that I have routed through, hitting it pretty hard because we want a cleaner signal, right? So I'm going to try and make it so it's not peaking. Okay, so no, stop kick. So now that we have the kick, okay, and I'm not going through all the EQs and stuff because that's what we did last session. But the kick is going to be your first start, making sure it's in the subs, making sure everything is routed properly. And during, let's say, a festival, let's say different things, right? This whole process, right, what I just did, you might only have 15 seconds per instrument, okay? You might have only 15 seconds and then you're done. So the goal is not getting the perfect EQ or whatever. The goal is making sure you have clean signal, making sure you have enough signal with the gain structure, and then making sure you just have a basic EQ and compression that will get you to the next phase, which will be once you get everything locked in quickly, then you kind of build the band together. So now we're going to move through this pretty quick, and also knowing what mics need phantom power, as well as what mics are dynamic. Do you need to go move it? I already set the mics for the drums, but knowing when you need to move the mics, knowing what you're listening for, and this is just practice. Do this over and over and over again. If you need your buddies who play a few instruments just to sit in a room for 10 hours because you don't know, your ear's not trained, do it. I mean, there's no harm. It can be fun with your buddies if they just want to jam. And a church especially will most likely support you. If you have an interest in volunteering, if you put that extra effort in, I'm sure they will give you the opportunity to try it out, to get people in there. Just, it's practice over and over again. I mean, I've done hundreds and hundreds of shows. It just takes time. So be patient, but put in the correct amount of work and doing things like this masterclass. Okay, snare, please. Okay, so a direction like this. So instead of all the hits and stuff, let's just get a 1, 1, 1. Okay, so that's a little soft too, right? So a little bit harder. Yeah, try the sticks. So he's using rods because we don't have a shield, right? So it's also knowing, okay, do you have a shield? Are they in a box? Or is it a live kit? So let's do a stick now. So then I adjust it, right? It's hitting, right now it's at, okay, a little bit of red, so bring it down. Okay, this is EQ, no EQ. Okay. And then making sure, okay, now hi-hat. Okay, so this is phantom power. Okay, so I can bring it up a little bit. See? Okay, tom 1. Okay, so no EQ. Okay, so EQ, I'm taking out a lot, right? I'm taking out a lot, kind of high end, some low end, because for the tom 1, here, stop tom for a second. So for the tom 1, right, you're wanting to hit certain frequencies, you're wanting to separate tom 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So just making sure that it's in the right pocket. This one, I need to change the gain a little bit. Okay, tom 1. Right, so this is sweeping. Okay, tom 2. Okay, tom 3. Okay, I can go a little more on that one. Okay. So now full kit, or actually pause, don't play yet. So now you have kind of all those quick instruments. So now what you can do is basically make sure that now the full kit sounds good. So now I'm going to mute, actually, all the toms and the kick and everything, and just do the overheads. So full kit, please. Right? So now I add the rest in. Okay. Are you guys hearing all that? You can't hear it. Let's see. Just wanted to make sure that that's heard. No. Play it again. Okay, pause. Pause. Okay, so sorry that the drums aren't quite going through. Let me test the keys, so normally we don't have a bassist right now, but then you'd go to bass, right? Then you go from bass to keys, keys to guitar, guitar to maybe horns or whatever else, and then you're going to end with vocals. So let's try if the keys are coming in clean for you guys. So keyboards, please. You guys hear that? Pause keys? Yeah, so you have the keyboardist play maybe the loudest patch, quietest patch, make sure it's even, right? If it's distorting or something, you're going to want the keyboardist to turn up his signal more, right? Sometimes they have a mixer, sometimes they have a monitor. You're going to want to direct them to give you the signal you need. And it's not being a jerk. Hey, keyboardist, I need this and this and this. You're trying to help them sound better. So don't feel bad about asking for more, being firm with, hey, I need you to play louder. I need you to do this, I need you to do that. Because at the end of the day, as an engineer and production person, you need them to give you what you need to be successful. And so, yeah, being aware of that. So keyboard, go again. Pause. Yeah, so the keys are going, the keys are good. Okay. So now that you have the keys, let's try the vocal real quick. So vocalist, please.
You give life, you give love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you,
pause.
Lord.
So with this vocal, right, Soundcheck, maybe a church member, it's an 8 a.m. practice, they roll out of bed, they grab their coffee and get on stage. So you're going to want to say, okay, maybe in the song, we need to get them to the bridge. Maybe we need to get them to some other part of the song, somewhere else, so that you can get the loudest they are, so you're not clipping and you're not adjusting their monitor mix. So vocalist, one more time, a little bit louder.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope.
Okay, pause. Yeah, so then quickly with the vocal, right, making sure that their monitor's good, making sure there's no feedback, and then from there, and that all should have been very, very quick. Now for you guys, slowing it down naturally. So then you would have, okay, now drums and bass play together, then you'd add the keys in, you'd add the guitar in, and add vocalists in, and then you're ready to do like a rehearsal, sound check, whatever, because you can't really get the signal and the quality you need by just having them kind of fiddle around with their instruments. You need to be really firm in a gentle way. Don't yell at people, don't be rude. But, once again, we're here to help them, so needing to direct them. Now, here's the thing with monitors, just real quick, that monitors, most people aren't going to ask for more in their monitor. Most people aren't going to ask, I need this, I need that. Most people are going to be quiet. So as an engineer, hey, do any of you need anything else? Do any of you need, more of the drums, which is rare. Know that most people don't need more of the drums because naturally they're a louder instrument. But do you need more of your voice? Do you need more of this voice? Being very open to having them feel comfortable telling you what they need, because we're here to help them. We're here to serve them. And so being that person to go out of your way, when I was doing monitors on stage, walk over to each person, hey, anything you need. And most of the time they said no, but at the end of the day, they were able to, have it be smooth. So I'm going to hopefully get drums now this time. We'll see if I can figure it out. And this is, hey, troubleshooting. So drums, please.
Full kit?
Yeah, full kit. Okay, pause. Okay, keys. Okay, pause. Yeah, so this is a perfect example. Drums aren't working. I'm getting them in the console, but I'm not getting them to you guys. Now, due to time, I'm not going to do a whole process. And it's unfortunate because they sound good. So for panning, just real quick, in general, right? Panning the keys, different things. So, and actually vocal, one more time. So now I'm going to show you with some reverb, the style of live mixing with reverb rather than the other.
All the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing, great are you, Lord.
Okay, pause. So what I'm doing here is instead of just leaving these two up all the time, is you ride them with the song. So whether it's delay or something else, as the voice comes into something, you bring that reverb in, bring it lower, bring it in for the big parts, knowing the song, because people just leave it here and let it sit, and then it's basically like it's not there. Okay, so I want to try drums one more time. They were saying I need to kind of be talking. Okay, effects are working great. Everything works great but drums. That's unfortunate. Okay, so let's try, if all of you just play the chorus, if you could.
All the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing, great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing, great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your
Okay, thank you.
breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath
Okay, thanks.
in
Check.
our lungs. Stop.
Awesome. So, yeah, that's a quick example. Thank you, band. We appreciate you. I'm sorry you guys couldn't hear the drums, but what I will be showing you in just a second is this is going to be a full mix of what we did the other week. Okay, comment real quick if that sounds good. Awesome. So this is what we recorded here, right? It's live. I did it in one take on the analog console, and so it's this push and pull. And the thing is, right, so you direct the band for the sound check. Okay, sing a little bit louder, go for it. Okay, further, making them really push so that then during the service, you're not surprised, you're not clipping, you're not doing something else. And once again, that process is way quicker. I'm slowing it down a little bit so you guys can kind of get the gist, as well as for the translation, which thank you, translators. So here's, just listen for a little bit of the mix, and then I'll kind of unpack it slightly.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only, God.
Okay, so I'll pause it right there. Basically, right, so what I'm doing, the lead vocalist there on the left, and, she is center. So I have the panning where she's center. The guy in the middle is actually a little bit panned left, and then the guy on the right is a little bit panned right. And that gives a little bit of a stereo image, but she's clear as day. The keyboard is panned a lot more, kind of like this. And then drums, you have the toms panned a certain way, and bass in the middle, kick in the middle. And so this is kind of giving a web for them to all fit in between. So listen a little bit more.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's our breath.
So quick comment on that. So those vocals, you're writing with live. Okay, this is with live. Studio, you have automation that you can adjust different things, right? With live, you are the automation. So you're not just sitting here like, oh, okay, it sounds good, right? So you're writing these faders at each little movement, right? You're adjusting those vocals, especially the harmonies. You're fitting them right in those pockets in order to be blended but separate and to allow distinction as well as both space and like depth. And so the reverb gives you a little bit more depth, but it's giving that feel, especially like congregationally, right? As a church, if churches are singing within a congregation, right? You want to hear that kind of that width and that large breadth, I suppose, of the singers to really kind of fill the space. So keep listening a little bit more, and then see it's going to be building as well.
In our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only, God.
So I want you to take a moment to, those chimes were way far in your right headphone if you guys are hearing stereo. So it's just being aware of, that space is, now that's an instrumental, right? So being aware of, okay, bring in the guitar up a little bit, maybe a little bit more pad and space for the keys to expand, as now there's no vocal. Just being aware of those little subtle movements and trying to really dig into making it feel, it's already worshipful, but how do you enhance that to connect to people at a deeper level in this case? And I saw a question earlier asking about, right, so as a volunteer, how do you get the worship team to go from a basic, it works, run it sound check, to a style sound check like that, right? If you can communicate the value of it, say, hey, look, you guys could show up and just kind of hang around and do your thing, right? That's one way to do it. But the other way is if you communicate, hey, I am helping you, okay? You give me 5 minutes of your attention, of your focus, okay? I'm going to make you guys sound way better. Yeah, you might have some pushback. People like their rhythm. People like to relax. And people might all of a sudden think, oh, he's a jerk or she's a jerk or this or that. But once they start hearing that it's sounding better, that's all you need. If you can show them the value, if you can show them the sound that you're getting from it, then it should be simple, simple. At the end of the day, it will be beneficial to them to have a much more structured sound check. When I was at church home, they'd walk in, they'd all kind of mosey in, start setting up. And if I wasn't, hey, okay, check this, go from each instrument, it would take an hour and a half sometimes. And that's just, maybe I was busy with something else or not hoping that they would do it. But, if they're not directing it, you as the engineer need to direct it, because at the end of the day, you're making them sound as good as possible. And so great question. That definitely is a push and pull, especially maybe if you're not a staff. Like, let's say the person in the position is not really forcing it. Honestly, send them this video when it's ready, or you just talk to them like, hey, look, I think it would be beneficial to do it this way. Then we can really hear it, and then we can start to mix it. This will be the bridge, and then I'll move on to another song just to kind of give you an idea.
The earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing, great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing, great.
Awesome. So on that one, right, so you had the toms starting to build, and then you get the organ pumping a little bit more, bringing the organ up, and really kind of building that atmosphere around the vocals to really draw you in. And that's just the flow of just knowing, okay, we're going, and then boom, build, and push in and lean into that mix. And it's just, it's not a perfect mix. It was live, one shot, one go. And that's what I love and hate about live mixing. So you're really starting to feel the music. If you can listen to the music before they perform, getting familiar with the songs always helps, so you know where that is. So now I'm going to share a song of Christafari. So this was the last show we did in Itapuve, Brazil. And Selah is a great song. It highlights some solos and different things. And this song, will kind of give you a good idea of what I'm doing with Christafari as far as mixing. Now, something to keep in mind, and actually I'm going to, is when you're mixing, just be aware. There's something called decibel levels that you can get. There might be one right here. No. Just to know how loud are you pumping the room, holding it up and making sure that people are safe, because you need people to be safe. And so just know that sound at a high level, 100 decibels, and some others are very dangerous at consistently. If you're consistently doing it, it will hurt you. So you can only, from OSHA's standards, which is just a sound kind of standard for safety, right? If you're listening to 105 decibels for more than an hour, you're going to cause damage to your ear at 110, 30 minutes. So these large festivals, right, you're going to want to make sure you have earplugs. You're going to want to make sure that you have those things because you very much could damage it. I have these. This is for, these are earplugs. They're 33 decibel decrease. So if it's at 100, right, it's going to be at, 76 or 80, whatever the amount is. Protecting your ears, making sure that you are safe and you're helping people not get distracted by how loud it is or if their ears are going to start hurting. And quick idea in general for ears, as our ears are sensitive, and especially if you're in live sound a lot, for every 1 hour of loud sound, you need 2 hours of silence. And so afterward, making sure you maybe sleep with earplugs, keeping music in the car or headphones quieter in general, but especially right after an event. And then just keeping after shows quiet, trying not to have too many loud noises going on, as our ears are our best tools and we need to protect them and we need to make sure that they are quality. So this next kind of part that we're going to transition into is showing you specifically different parts of the Christafari mix to give you an idea of what I do for the band, as well as what I'm kind of keeping in mind as I mix them. And a note too, if you're using digital consoles, having a starter page as well. And I'm going to show you that real quick. So this is a starter page of some show that we did. And if I go to this is a starter page, sorry. So, right, it's kind of empty, faders are down, different things. And then you move from the starter page and you build your whole show, you do everything, EQ, compression, everything, and then you finish the show. You save it, just in case it was a really good mix, something like that. But the starter page, this saves you time, it saves you energy. And make sure, once again, you save it onto a flash drive. You never know, someone reroutes it, someone does something to it. You want to make sure you have a separate system set up for that. So here is Selah.
Come on. I want to see some people dancing up front, in the aisles. no fear for I. Not tied, not tied. Don't want them life for suicide. No. Not tied, not tied. Many of them run nowhere to hide. Not tied, not tied. I run to yes where I can find. I am nice, survive. Sila, I'm dancing for the Father. Sila, thanks and prayers I will not touch. Sila, Christafari, no bother. Sila, staying here now, my brother. I know that's right. You said, not tied, not tied. I'm gonna live eternal life. Yes, yes, I.
So just to comment on some of that, what you've heard already, right? Keys, pan, different things, and really riding those delays, really riding those different aspects of the sound. So now we'll keep it going.
Crucifixion, Jesus died. It's death for right, you and I. Rise up and see Jesus rise. Up high, so Christ. Sila, fasting for the Father. Sila, thanks and prayers I will not touch. Sila, Christafari, no bother. Sila, staying here now, my brother. Sound of the horns. Sila, dancing for the Father. Sila, thanks and prayers I will not touch. Sila, Christafari, no bother. Sila, saying here now, my brother.
Okay, so that is, right, you have, especially in that song, there's a lot of solos. So there was a little, I don't know if you heard it, but there's a little bit of kind of feedback. That room was super hard. And, you know, if I'm moving the faders up for the solo, I can't also adjust something feeding back potentially. So you have to pick and choose. You have to figure out what's going on. But it was like, I know those solos were coming, so you got to move those faders up, adjust it. Christopher was asking, instead of adjusting the instruments, do you want to build and turn up the whole sound? Yeah, you can totally just bring up the main fader a little bit to just get the extra push and bring it back down. But sometimes you're not going to want to adjust everything, right? So if the vocal is in a good spot, maybe just build up that space around it. So great question. But yeah, that mix was fun, not perfect once again, but just knowing, okay, the keyboard coming up, okay, the guitar coming up, down, that push and pull, bringing the toms up for that solo, just knowing when and where things are happening and just knowing it as they come. One advantage for me, and maybe for you, if you're a musician as well, that helps mixing immensely. So if you do know an instrument, that helps you just know the feel of the song and guessing what's going on. So I'm going to answer these few questions. If you have more questions, feel free to put them in. We have some more time, so put them in the Q&A, and I will get to as many as I can. So Christopher's asking, trying to get the band's attention for our worship practice at my church. We start to practice at 8, and our first service starts at 9, so we have a limited amount of time. You're also young, you're 17. and one of them is in her 20s. So how do I get their attention respectfully and get done quickly, especially since I'm still getting trained at my church for sound? That's a great question. And I have a couple things. One would be, walk in humility. When I was at the Saban, I was one of the youngest people. I was managing people that were 40. I was managing people that had been in the army, all this stuff. But you can come in like, hey, like, I know everything. Do it my way, right? But if you come humbly, people are going to respect you. If you care, say, talk to some of the people. You could even go one by one. Say, hey, you know what? I watched this masterclass. And or just say, hey, look, like I want to try something new. I think it'd be really helpful if we quickly went through each instrument so I could hear it individually, make sure it sounds good, make sure there's a good level, and then we can test it. What do you think? And maybe, they'll say, hey, let's give it a try. Hey, would you mind, can we start 30 minutes early? Hey, would everyone mind coming next week 30 minutes early so we can do a little bit of extra sound check? I want to try some things to better serve you. Both the perspective of humility as well as expressing to them your care for them, expressing to them, hey, this is for your benefit. If you allow me to serve you, I would love to. So that would be my suggestion. As a young person myself, you can get a lot of people that are, look down on you. But the Bible says don't look down on those who are young. Don't let that stop you, but just come in humbly and express, what you think is important in that way. So Jacob Hoffman's asking, what is the best method that you have found for live streaming or recording live sets? House mics, live feed from the board, multi-track recording with post-processing, etc. That's a great question. I have not done a ton of live streaming necessarily. A lot of what I did was we would send signal to the people doing the live stream. So there's a few different softwares, different things that you can do. But most likely, in probably your circumstance, doing a left-right mix out to them, and they'll send it through. Some places with really high-tech stuff will have a whole separate mixing console for the studio and live stream. So that's for like high-end stuff. And, 2 house mics you can easily add into your mix. And if they sound good, then you can send it. But most likely, like that was just a left-right. That song, Selah, was just a left-right from the console. So just a USB in, saving it, writing it to your track, or other things all help. So it's just a matter of it, but just, try it out, see what works. Multi-tracking, obviously, you have post-production, but what's interesting is, in some of the things I do, someone will multi-track it, and sometimes, it takes less time, and sometimes it's just better for the, it's easier just to do a one-shot mix if you're good, right? And it's good to practice that. If you need the time or you want the practice, you can multi-track it and play with it that way. But normally live stream, for the most part, unless you have a whole separate system, would be just a left-right. So great question. How do you set your compressor in live instruments and vocals? It depends, but normally I'll compress the drums pretty strong as well as using gates. So that way, like the toms are just boom, boom, really sharp, really clean. So the drums, I do that. Bass, I'll compress a little bit so that the really low and the high all kind of sit in the same range. Normally, keyboard and piano, there's not a ton of compression you need to do. Guitar, it just depends, but not normally. Would you need a lot? And then vocals, it just depends. Some vocalists will be very soft and then very loud, or they'll back off from the mic and come in. It's just really knowing, trusting your ear and knowing kind of who is doing what and how they project. And also, and you can help them with this too, right? Just knowing your mic control, knowing just kind of how they move. Do they have good mic technique, or are they kind of not so good at it? It really just depends. But at the end of the day, they are, they're there to be helped by you. And so taking the compressing and not overcompensating it so it distorts, you still want really clean signal, but allowing it to really just, fit in the mix. So, I can't say it's at 3-1 and this much attack. It's really just playing around with it. And if you have enough time, like let's say you have 30 minutes to kill before the set, say, hey, drummer, play your stuff and just turn the knobs intense and down and really just get familiar with how the changes. Start to hear and listen to the changes that it'll make. So thank you, Angel, for that. Well, right now, I don't see any other questions. Other than it sounded like someone was asking, will you get the documents I shared? And definitely. I might not be able to share all of them as like the Alan Parsons Project documents. I need to be respectful. But for sure, like our rider and some other things, I'll definitely send all those to you. But checklists are a massive importance, as checklists is a quick way to make sure you covered every single base. Because if you don't, if you run out of that thing or whatever, you'll be in trouble. So, yeah. So, hey, Juju, I think you could hop on in.
Awesome job today. Thank you so much, Connor, for this amazing class. I learned a lot also. And I want to thank our translators and moderators for helping out during the entire program. And I want to say something real quick. If you're blessed and you learned a lot from today's class, I want to encourage you to go to christafari.com/donate and click on Connor's name and just send a donation his way, because he's a full-time music missionary along with all of us. And we're so blessed for your partnership, and it would help Connor, as this is the only thing he does, and he's putting in so much work with being our sound engineer and also putting together the Ascend classes. So we are so thankful for your partnership. And I want to give you another bonus. If you go and donate today, you will get Avion Blackman's brand new album right now. So thank you so much for your donations and for helping out in any way you can. And I want to encourage you to check out our classes tomorrow. We have myself doing worship keys at 3 p.m. featuring David Fohi and Henato Times. And at 5 p.m., Luis Suarez and Mark Moore will be doing iPhone filmmaking. So thank you so much and have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you, Juju. Juju has been my co-producer on all these masterclasses, and I super appreciate him and his contribution to Christafari. And thank you for all of that, Juju, for all the future classes. There's so many great classes, guys, and thank you for joining.